what's up? Jack here with devslopes.com, and I got one more little topic that I want to go over before we move on and get out of our JavaScript basics. This isn't necessarily a JavaScript basics topic. Well, it kind of is, but we need to know how to reuse code from one file in another file. When we build our API, we don't want just one file that's going to have all of our code in it. That's not practical. That's not how we do things. So generally, you've got a bunch of different files that make up your application, and you need a way to import or require those files so that you can call them from another file. And that's what we're going to discuss here today. The legacy way to do it with es5 is the require statement. And es6 introduced something called import. And at the current time, we're having to use Babel to use the import statement, so we're not really gaining a whole lot. But in the future, once the import is implemented fully in Node, it should offer at least a little performance benefit. For one thing, with import, you can import parts of your file instead of the whole file at one time. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. There's going to be a little bit of setup here involved because we've got to get Babel running in order to show you the difference between require and import. But this is something that we need to know anyway, so we're going to go ahead and do that real quick. So in my terminal, I'm just in my my basics folder, and I'm just going to run npm init because we need a package.json file. And I'm just going to accept the defaults. And then I'm going to open it over here in my text editor. And I don't need this main. I really don't need a lot of this stuff, but we're going to leave it in here anyway. We're going to need to install a couple of packages. So we're going to do npm install --save. And we're going to install Babel -CLI, which stands for Babel Command Line Interface, and then Babel -preset -ES 2015 -node 6. And you can probably tell by the name, that's just a preset that works with Babel. And basically what it does is it gives node 6 full ES6 functionality, ES6 or ES 2015 functionality. So with those, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter and let those install. And we'll be right back. Okay, so we've got Babel CLI and Babel preset ES 2015 node 6 installed. You can see here in our package.json file that they're listed under dependencies. There's a couple things I need to do. First of all, under scripts, we can just leave that test item in there. Just put a comma out here at the end. And then I need to put, I'm just going to put dev here as the key. And then for the value, we need to put in Babel-node. And then our file that we're wanting to run. And the particular file that I'm going to run, I'm going to call require and import. Alright, so we'll put that in there and get rid of this extra space. And then I need another key here. And this one's just going to be called Babel. And then under that, I need a presets key. And in the presets, there's an array. And it's going to have one item, and that's going to be ES 2015 -node 6. And then we need our comma here. So basically, we've added this dev line here. That's going to allow us to run it. And then we've added this block here with this Babel preset. And that's going to let us run our file as if, or with es6 fully implemented. So let's go ahead and give this a shot. Let me save this. And we're going to need two files. I'm going to need one called export. And then I'm going to need one, and we'll just call it require and import. All right. So in JavaScript, the way you get access to code from other files is you export it. So just for instance, we can declare a variable up here. We'll just say let my variable equal 942. And I'm going to go ahead and declare a couple of functions here. And we'll make these es6 arrow functions. We'll just say hello from func1. And then func2 will do this. Alright. So we've got three things declared in this file. We've got a variable and two functions. Now there's different ways that you can export these so that you can import them into other files. The old way of doing it is you would put, you could do module.exports dot myvar equals my variable. You could do the same thing with your functions. Module.exports dot func1 equals func1, and so forth. And then once we exported those, we could come over here to our require and import. So we could import the whole file. We could say something like let my funcs equals, and then require, and then in the parentheses here in require we would just put a // because that's the current directory that we're working in, and we would just put export, and you don't even have to put the .js on there. Now from there we have access to the code that's in that function, or in that other file I mean. So to call it, we could say something like console.log, and then we could use a template string, and we could say and then we refer to it by the variable that we assigned up here. Okay, and then we could also call those other functions by saying myfuncs.func1 and myfuncs.func2. And I left the C off right there. Okay, so if we save that, now we don't have to use es6 for this because this is a require statement. So if we run node require and import, I get an error. Okay, I don't know what I was doing. Somehow when I was typing this in, I was typing node twice. I don't know where that came from. But anyway, if we do node and then the file name, and that's this file name right here, we're going to call the functions that are in this export, the functions and variables, but we're running this file here. So if we just say node require and import.js, you see here we get the value of my var is 942, and then we get hello from func1 and hello from func2. So these two functions actually executed when we called them from here. Alright, now then, something else we can do is, since we declared all of these on individual lines, we can shorten this up a little bit. We could say module.exports equals and then pass in an object. And then we can lay out our exports in this object here. So we could say my variable is the key. And then actually we'll change this to my var. And then we can do my variable as the value. And then we can say func1, func1, func2 is func2. Alright, and if I save that, we come over here and we execute it again, we still get the same values. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can also export from where you make the declaration here. So you could say module.exports.myvar equals 942, and then here you can put module.exports.func2 and then module.exports.func2 there. If we rerun this, you see we get the same values. So there's about 3 different ways that you can do that require export and then require. Now then, the import statement with es6. It's just a little bit different, and I'll show you the way it works first. So the first thing is we're going to take out these module.exports. Okay. And then we're just going to say export, and then we're going to put our let keyword back in there. So we just put export let and then the name and then the assignment. So in this first one, we're assigning the variable myvar, we're exporting the variable myvar, and then we're exporting the func1 and func2. To run these over here, instead of using this import statement, we can use an es6, or I'm sorry, instead of this require statement, we can use an es6 import statement. And that looks like import, and in curly braces you can put what you're wanting to import. And actually we don't even need that. Alright, now I've got that one saved. So all 3 of these variables should be available, or all 3 of these names should be available down here. Now, in order to run this, like I said, this is an import statement, es6. We've got to use Babel. And in our package.json, we set up this line right here, this dev. And that's supposed to run this Babel-node line right here. So in order to run that, we need to type npm run dev and hit enter, and it runs Babel. And I messed up here because we're not using my funcs anymore. It just needs to be my var, func1 and func2. So let me save that and let's try it one more time. npm run dev. Alright, and you see we get here the value of my var is 942. Hello from func1 and hello from func2. Now there's absolutely no difference right now in using this import statement and using the require statement, because Node does not support import. We're having to use Babel, which is transpiling it into ES5. So there's really not any big gain here other than the fact that we can pull these in with this new syntax versus the require syntax. So in this course, I'm most likely going to use import because we're going to go ahead and set Babel up anyway. And one thing about Babel, even when Node adopts all of the es6 features, at some point in time, then es7 features are going to be coming out. And Babel tends to stay up to date on the new features. So the way I look at it is it's always going to be ahead of the game. So if we keep using Babel, we should be able to use new features as they come along, even if Node doesn't support it. So that's the kind of the idea here. We're going to go ahead and use Babel, and we're most likely going to be using this import statement instead of require. Not that there's anything wrong with require, but we're just going to go ahead and use the new syntax because that's the direction we're moving. So that's all there is to this lesson. There's some more topics to talk about as far as imports and exports and modules go. But we'll kind of get into that discussion as we start building the API. There's nothing like practical experience with it. And I think you'll get a lot of that when we start going through the course, the main meat of the course. So anyway, that's all. I just wanted to kind of mention this and show you this. And yeah, let's move on. And I think it's about time that we actually start building our API. So we'll see you in the next video.